Today we have just a little fun project I wanted to do. It's just a Halloween decoration. I think this is gold. And I wanted to PlastiDip it. So to kind of go through the technique of PlastiDip, obviously you start with cleaning it with some pre-dip spray. You can get all this stuff on dipyourcar.com. That's where I get all my PlastiDip stuff. Project stuff is from dipyourcar.com, and they have a lot of tutorial videos on their YouTube channel, so you can do so much with PlastiDip. It's a lot of fun, actually. I do full cars, wheels, cars, full thing, or I used to. I keep saying I do, and I don't anymore because I'm retired from the auto detail industry. I'm gonna go ahead and put on some gloves just so that I can touch that without it getting fingerprints and oil, my finger oils and stuff on it. So let me readjust this camera a little bit. So make sure it's completely clean, completely dry. The thing about PlastiDip is you want to make sure it is 100% dry, or else the water, it won't adhere and the water will release the PlastiDip. Okay, off to the side here, I filled up my bucket with hot water. I like to set my PlastiDip cans, even if they're gallon cans or rattle cans. I'm using a rattle can today. I like to set them in a bucket of hot water to let it, because it just helps it spray a lot easier. A lot thinner particles spray out. My shop is a little bit cold. It's not see my breath cold, but it's chilly. So definitely like to set those out and let it, or not set it out, but put it in hot water. Okay, so as you can see, I also have my wife's little spinner table here. It's for decorations in the house. She would probably be mad if she knew I was using this, but we won't tell her. I also have this right here, these little pieces right here. Little triangle pieces, and this is just to get it elevated. I'm not going to do the bottom, but I do want to elevate this as evenly as possible. So try and find an even spot to where you could spin it and it doesn't come crashing down on you. Okay, so it's dry, it's ready to go. I am going to, my can's been sitting in there for about 5 minutes. And then this is just the flat black, just the black rattle can. It's a satin black that we're gonna use. You always wanna shake your cans, even though it's been in hot water, you wanna shake it for quite a while, especially with PlastiDip. So give it a good shake. They say about a minute or two. I shake it until I'm done shaking it, and then I test it. If it's clear, keep shaking. And then the first couple coats, not just the first coat, but the first couple coats, you want to just do dusting, just literally like this. And now that I have this little table here, I could just do that. Get it good dust. And let that sit. You want to wear a respirator. I'm not wearing a respirator right now. I'm not wearing a mask right now because it's the muffled sound if I do wear it. But you definitely want to wear a mask with PlastiDip because this shit is strong. And before too long, once we get into the thicker coats, I'll put a mask on while I'm spraying it. But once you get into the thicker coats, this stuff it will make you high as hell, and you will feel like, where the hell are you? So definitely wear a respirator, a good one too. Okay, that was a few minutes. So I'm gonna do round two. I did get a mask, so I have this little mask on. So same thing, just a dusting with a little bit more emphasis on the dust, not a lot. You want a tacky coat is what we're going for. So let that set up again. And for me, I recommend when you're doing PlastiDip, especially to make it peelable, I recommend counting the dusting coats, I would say 6 coats is your best bet. So you got 2 or 3 dusting, and then 3 heavy coats or 4 heavy coats. As you get heavier as you go on, but you want to have at least 6 coats down, because when you peel that off, you want to make sure that it's peelable. Because if you're too thin on the PlastiDip, that's where a lot of people make the mistakes. If you're too thin on PlastiDip, it's a pain in the ass to peel off. You should be able to peel it off relatively easy, 1 full panel at a time when you're doing full panel cars. Okay, we're going for round 3. And while you're in between coats, be shaking your can, or make sure to put it back in the water if you want, if you're in a cold environment. But put it back in the water, and then make sure you're shaking in between. So now I'm getting a little bit thicker on there. You want to move like it's like the can. Once you get to, I'm getting the inside lip here. So there we go. That was round 3. Putting it back in the water. When you're painting anything, you want to the can or the sprayer should be a part of your body, an extension of your body. Don't be I don't know. It's funny when you see people painting, because they spray really awkwardly. And you just need to do a movement like that. Right? It's super simple once you get the hang of it. But if you catch yourself doing, you're going to get blobs and heavy spots, which you don't want. Because as you put on heavier coats with PlastiDip, if you put on too heavy a coat, it's gonna drip down. You'll see a run mark, and those are difficult to fix. They're fixable, but they're very difficult, or you need to respray. Okay, I think this is 4. I'm making sure I have a towel down here, because when I pull it out of the water, I don't want the water that's on the can to get in my hands. I'm wearing rubber gloves, but it'll stay wet and it could drip onto the project here. So you want to dry your can off before you start shaking it around the project. There we go. Test spray, good to go. Now I'm getting thicker. I'm gonna go back over those eyes a little bit. Shake, shake, shake. Make sure you're shaking it continuously. I'm gonna lay it on a little thicker now, so it can start to become a wet coat, which is gonna bond it now and give it that smooth look. But by no means is this the final coat. And you got different angles that you got to hit it at, because there's little curves and crevices. I'm going to let that dry there, and we'll come back to it. One thing I wanted to mention, now that it's getting to wet coats, because the tack coats, those dry very rapidly, just a few minutes, 5 minutes or whatever, in between. But once you get to a wet coat, you can see it dry. You'll be able to see when it's dry and when it's not dry by looking at it, but especially with the satin or the flat black. But the thing is you want to give it, probably the wetter you go, you want to give it at least 5 minutes for every wetness step you go up. So this will probably be 10, 15 minutes. When you put on the last couple coats, you could go 20. On big projects, you can go 20, 30 minutes or more, depending on your environment. So you want to make sure it's pretty well dry before you put the next coat on. Not cured dry, but dry, so that if it's still wet and you start putting on wet coats, you're going to create runs in it. So, and you definitely do not want that. So you want to let it completely dry, and you'll see it when it's dry. So it'll be obvious. Okay, I'm going to try and get you in close so you can see how it's drying. So you can see how it's starting to get on that edge up there, how it starts to get more of a flat finish. And still, there's still a lot of shine to it. I put my lights around, so hopefully you guys can see. Let me move back so you can see different angles, different lighting. But that's what you're looking for, is that flat look. It's drying up. So there's still some time to go before this is ready for the next coat. But I just wanted to see what you're looking for as it's drying. So like when you come back into your project, you can see that there's obviously wet spots and there's obviously dry spots. And so you want to wait till it's a little bit more thoroughly dry. Okay, so that's been probably about 15-20 minutes, and you can see it's a nice, just flat sheen to it. There's no real gloss. There's a couple areas in there that have a little bit of gloss. So I'm gonna give it another 5 minutes or so and let that dry out, because those are the spots that will puddle up and then drip down if you get it too wet. So I'm gonna let that dry up a little bit more, but you could see overall how flat it is right there. That's the dry look that you're looking for. Okay, we're gonna go for another coat. This is gonna be another wet coat. And we're gonna do at least this one, potentially one more. I'm not sure what coat number we're on. I just kind of go for the look. If I could still see some gold coming through, peeking through, so that tells me it's not on there thick enough yet. Hopefully you guys can get a good visual. And this is what you do with wheels. This is what you do with entire cars. Entire cars, I would not recommend using a rattle can. That's what they have sprayers for and gallons for. It's not cost effective to not buy by the gallon, except for when you're doing little projects and wheels. So, I mean, you can also spray your wheels with your sprayer, your dip sprayer, but because you can set those to smaller spray, wider spray, you can definitely spray wheels with your big sprayer. It just sometimes is more cost effective and easier to do it with a rattle can, depending on the wheel make. So, okay, see, I'm going thicker coats, 50-50 overlap, essentially. I'm gonna do the top separately, getting it from that angle, getting it from this angle. I'm talking about the eyes here. Cool thing about this roller, let me give it a good shake, is it gets me both angles that I'm wanting. So and what I look for, I'll try and bring you in on the next one, because I was thinking it as I was doing it, and then you probably missed it, is you'll see the little bubbles and then they'll blend smoothly. They'll blend out smoothly. That's where I know it's wet enough to stop spraying. If you go to spray it until it's completely clear, that's too heavy and that's gonna start to run. So that's a good solid coat. I'm gonna let that dry for probably another 30 minutes because that was a good one. But I'll try and bring you in on the next one after I do the top part, and you can see the bubbles that I'm talking about and how they kind of dissipate and spread out and turn smooth. So when you do when you want smooth, like a flat finish, you have to spray it like that. If you're doing and doing too light of coats, it's gonna leave a real heavy texture to it, and you don't want that on a car or wheels. Okay, so there we are on, I don't know, I think that was 5 coats, 5 or 6. This will be 6, I think. This will be 6, I believe. And I might just leave it at this, because I kind of like the way it's looking right now. We'll see when I'm done, how it looks. But Okay, test spray. And you see how I'm spraying through? So I'm going all the way through, not stopping it at the exact edge. I'm spraying all the way through. Take some time to shake it. And then once I get over here, I'm gonna pull you in and see if we can get that top part so you can see what I'm talking about as far as like how it, I guess, atomizes. Okay, that's a good shot right there. You see how it kind of bubbles up? Boom, and then it'll lay out. It's wet, starts to even out. Give it one more little, there we go. Then it's gonna smooth out. So that's what you're going for. So that will probably be my last black coat. Let's see this. Looks good, everything's on there nice and even. It's drying. And it should be completely smooth when it's done drying. And then I'm gonna get my airbrush out, hopefully, and put on a little bit of red. So you can just see how it really evened out. It's a super wet coat. I mean, you saw how wet it was when I sprayed it, so. But I kept the can moving, putting on even coats, but spraying through, not spray, stop, 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 stop. I spray, 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 spray. Okay, so I'm thinking I did 6 or 7 coats. I forgot to count, or I lost count. This is pretty close to being dry in the way that I want it to be. So you can see it's a cool look. I am gonna add some, well, it's in my sriracha bottle, but it's the, I have some leftover carbon red PlastiDip that I'm gonna add onto here through my airbrush. I hope it turns out and I hope it looks cool. But so my biggest thing for this video is showing people how easy it is to spray PlastiDip. My number one suggestion and recommendation to anybody who hasn't sprayed PlastiDip, is afraid to spray PlastiDip, you got to try it. If you don't try it, if you don't do it, you're not going to learn how to do it. So my recommendation is start with small projects. Get projects that have like little in and outs like this, have texture to it that you have to shoot from different angles, because that's going to be relatable to wheels. And just different panels on vehicles. Every panel has different edges, different areas that you're gonna have to get to, and you're gonna have to learn to do those so that you don't get wet spots or high spots that are gonna turn into drip marks. So get small projects. Start with small projects like this and play with it. Learn how to spray PlastiDip. Learn your depth, learn your patterns, and learn how to see when it's wet. And try to go over wet. Test out like going over wet so you know where that threshold is, because you don't want to, the last thing you want to do is being on a huge SUV or a huge car, you get to the last panel, the last layer, you put it on too thick and it has a run mark. Then you either have to peel the whole thing off or go through a whole bunch of steps to get rid of that run mark. And if you have a pearl, you're better off just peeling and respraying, because the way the pearls lay down is that once it's laid down, you spray it once and lay down. If you try to come up and touch up, like dab on, touch up paint, touch up PlastiDip, the pearl isn't laying out the same way, so it's gonna look way different. Lessons learned the hard way. So I definitely learned that one the hard way. So I would start with small projects like this, play with it, learn how to spray PlastiDip, because it's fun. It's super easy, it's fun, anybody can do it, but you don't want to start with a big project.
You don't want to have somebody that says, hey, will you spray my car, and you've never done it before. And I would say learn how to spray out of a rattle can for wheels, and get yourself a turbine, and learn how to spray out of their sprayer, because it's a completely different beast. So it's easy, they're user friendly, and they're very do it yourself, but you want to know how to do it before you actually commit to doing it. And then when it comes to different levels of flat colors to pearl colors to clear coat on top, you got to learn every single one of those steps, because there's something unique about every single one of those differences. So start with small projects, learn how to do it, get comfortable doing it, and then expand from there. Okay, now we're gonna try this again. I had to repair my gun because it had some things go wrong with it. So you want to start I haven't used this gun in forever. So let me get my lighting a little bit better after I do this. Again, this is PlastiDip, so a little bit going on a little thicker than I need the light. Let's get the light in a second. There we go. Get those. Yeah. That is obnoxious. I apologize for that. That's my little air compressor. You should hear my big one. Nose there. Try and get a little bit more detail on the lines here, but I need to get some better lighting. That's pretty cool looking, actually. A little bit more paint. So with this, you gotta like layer it, because you don't want to go too thick, especially if you're trying to just like highlight lines. Now I'm not see, I screwed up right there. I'm not an expert at airbrushing by any stretch of the word. I just don't want to come out too, there we go, just like, so it feathers up. I know there's guys out there that can just like do the thinnest of lines and and they just look so cool. But that's not, I don't know anything about that. I'm not at that level. It's funny how little air this uses, but yet it sets that little air compressor off. A little bit thicker on that. There we go. It's pretty cool looking, I guess. I mean, I kind of went on thick right there. You can see that's a really good example of a run mark. So there's nothing I could do about it. I mean, I could blend it kind of. Make everything else around it thicker. This is the first time I picked up this airbrush in probably 2 years at least. You could tell. I never did get into airbrushing though. I just got it and I wanted to, but I never did. And you can tell. That looks pretty dope though. Okay, I'm gonna leave it. Okay, so here's the finished product. It's all the way dry, and you can see how smooth that looks. Like there's hardly any orange peel. And the thing about PlastiDip is if you spray it on not wet enough, if you don't wet it out well enough, it's gonna leave a lot of orange peel. That's just how PlastiDip works. That's the one big difference between PlastiDip and a wrap, a vinyl wrap. Obviously, the application is the big difference, but the one thing about PlastiDip is it definitely will leave more of an orange peel texture to it, and the wraps are pretty pretty flat. They don't have the orange peel because they're, you know, it's a plastic wrap, it's a PPF. So that is a major difference. But when you wet it out well enough, you can really get PlastiDip to look really, really flat. So that's where I'd say just practice on small projects first before you go big, and learn how to wet it out. That's the biggest thing. I think this looks pretty cool, even though, you know, I'm not the best airbrusher, and I never admitted to being. I don't even really have any real experience with it, but that looks pretty cool. I was gonna clear coat it, but I decided that I like the flat black look better than had I airbrushed it. But right here is a really good example of a run. So that's where I sprayed, my airbrush just too much came out, and that is what it looks like when it runs. It leaves like a drip looking mark. You could see that edge right there. So that's a perfect example of what would happen to paint or PlastiDip if you allowed it to run, if you sprayed it on too thick. So that's just one example there. Overall, but this is how it should look as far as the black goes. Completely flat, you know, dry. And then if you add clear coat to it, you can also, that's gonna add a little texture to it. Clear coat, without a doubt, adds texture to PlastiDip. So that's the one thing that's bad about adding clear, is you better have really good experience with that. So practice, practice, practice. Practice on small projects. I did actually add a thick layer onto this so I can remove the evidence, so my wife doesn't get all pissed off at me. So this is gonna peel off really easily. Okay, so hopefully this will be an example of the peel off. I'll try and get it going. Usually with PlastiDip on flatter edges, you gotta kind of get an edge going. Again, this is pretty fresh, so if it does break up, but you can see how easy that edge is coming, right? It's kind of just picking up right there. And then if you layer it well enough, this is super fresh, but it is, I did heat it up with a heat gun. So when you layer it well enough, this is how it should peel, like this. Just like that. And it's basically the thickness of a popped balloon. So just like that, boom, easy, clean. And then these edges right here, you just take a microfiber towel, and grab one real quick. You could take a microfiber towel or any towel, or just rub it with your hand, and these edges will clean right off, the real thin stuff. This is not how you want to remove thicker PlastiDip, because it's a pain in the ass. That's why you want to spray it on nice and thick. I'd say minimum of 6 layers. So, and then boom, perfectly cleared off.